Hello and welcome. I'm Raghav, and today we are going to learn how to create the first test case in Protractor. And this is going to be very easy and very interesting. And I will start from scratch and go step by step. So, we are going to learn how to create a test file or a test case, how to add our test steps in our test file. We will also learn how to add element locators at a very basic level, and then finally we will run our test case. So let's get started. And here I will go to my Visual Studio Code, and we have been creating the project on Visual Studio Code. So I will go here, and if you see, we have our folder here, and this is the project we created in the earlier session. So for this session, the prerequisite is you should have watched the earlier session, and if I go to my Protractor playlist, you can see the last session was creating Protractor framework on Visual Studio Code from scratch. So you can watch this in case you have not watched. I will also provide the link of this video here. So this is the prerequisite for this video. And then let me just put it down, and all these notes will be available to you in the description or the notes section. So now here the first step will be I will go to my Visual Studio Code, and here is my Visual Studio Code, and we had created here two folders. Inside our project folder we have conf folder and we have tests folder. Now in Protractor, to run the test cases in Protractor, we need two files. First file is conf.js and the second file will be spec.js. Now the names are not important, you can name it anything, but basically what conf.js is, it has all the configurations like the browser, the framework to be used, etc. All these configuration or environment setup is there in the conf.js file. And if I go to my conf.js file, and here you can see all this, like browser name is Chrome, framework that we are using is Jasmine, that is by default in Protractor, and then the spec file or the test file location, all these things are here. Also we can set the default interval timeout, and this conf.js file we have taken directly from our Protractor setup. And if you have seen in the last video as well, I have explained about this. Once you install Protractor, you will get this folder, and if you go to this folder, so if you go to this folder, you will find these two files, conf.js, and this is the test file example spec.js. Of course, we are going to create our new test file, but we can use the conf.js file which is already existing. So here in this file, we just have to change the name or the location of our test file. So the next is the text file, the test file or the spec file. So this is actually the tests that we write. And here so tests are present in the spec file, and as I said, the name can be anything. Now here I'm going to create a new test file. So I will go to the tests folder, and here I will do a right click and say new file, and I will create a new file here. So let us see what we are going to test here. So I will just go and search for Protractor demo application, or you can also search for any AngularJS application. So if I go here, let me just check here if we have some demo application. So here is the Protractor main website, that is protractortest.org, and here are some tutorials, and here you can see there is a demo application available. So let us just take this one and see what is this application all about. So here we have a calculator, and this is a AngularJS application. You can also check, I have some extensions on my Chrome browser that can check the technology stack of the application. So I have this what runs. If I click here, it will show you the technology stack, and you can see it says it uses AngularJS as the JavaScript framework, And then I also have another extension in Chrome called as Webalizer. It will also tell us the technology stack of the application, and it is using AngularJS. So just in case you want these, you can just go to your web store on Chrome and you can search for what runs, and this is an extension on Chrome that you can just get. So this is what runs, and the other one I have used is Webalizer. This will again check the technology of your application. So this is again you can get it. So we know this is an AngularJS application and this is a calculator. You can put some digits here, select the action and click on go. It will give you the result. So this is what we are going to use. I will also make this available in the notes, in the references. So this is the demo application that we are using. So for now, I will say, so I will have to create a new test file. So let us say I will go to my test folder, do a right click, say new file and say calculator.js and hit enter, and I have got my file here. So now we have to write the test cases, and because we are using Jasmine, so we have to create test cases in the Jasmine framework format. Now again, if you go to Jasmine, I will say Jasmine syntax just to check what is the syntax we used for Jasmine tests. So here you can see these are some links that will show you. We also have a cheat sheet for Jasmine, and this will give you a hint how you can start. So you can see this is the syntax. We use describe, and this is like a test suite, and then we use it here. So all the it sections are the test cases. And if I show you here, again you can see the same thing. We use describe. A suite is just a function, so this is a suite, and then we use it. I will show you step by step how to do this, but this is just for reference. So this is a Jasmine cheat sheet where you can see how to write the test cases. You can see this is how we write, and the verifications statements here. So I will also provide all these links in the notes. So for now I will just go here, and here I will say I will start with describe. So we use describe and brackets and give a semicolon at the end, and in the bracket you can give the name of your scenario. So describe is like a scenario, so I will say demo calculator tests and then comma and say function, and here again give brackets, again give brackets here, and then give a curly bracket start and a curly bracket close, and I can put the end bracket in the next line. So this is a scenario in Jasmine framework for Protractor, and now within this scenario I can create the it blocks. So I will say it, and in the bracket again I will give the test name. So it is test, so I will say, let us say this is the addition test. I will say this is addition test, and then give a semicolon at the end, and then you can again say here function and bracket and then curly bracket start and curly bracket stop. So this will be the syntax, and looks like there is some issue. Let me just check. Here we should be having, why this is showing as an error. So here let me check what is the error. Alright, so here it should be, this should be function. So that's my mistake. It is function here, not functions, and now this is fine. So this is the syntax, and we can have multiple it blocks for multiple test cases. This will be one test case. I can also create a test case for subtraction. I will say again it block. I'll say subtraction test and function, and the steps goes inside this block. So like this I can keep on adding more tests to this test suite or to this describe block. For now let me just have a single test so it is very easy for you to understand. Now inside this test, inside this addition test, I'm going to write the steps for running our test case. Now here one of the very useful tools will be, let me just show you, this is going to be very useful for you throughout your protractor testing. So search for Protractor API, and here it is. Go here, and this is the link for Protractor API, and here you will find all the classes and methods exposed by Protractor. So you can even search here, and this will be very handy. Now the first step is we have to open browser and we have to go to this website, which is super calculator. All right, so for that I will just search for browser, and you can see there is already a section for browser here. And let me say what is the action I can use, or what is the method I can use. So here we have get. I will click on get, and you can see this is how I can use the browser.get function to get to any website. So I will just copy it from here and put it in my code here, browser.get, and this is the link of the website. So in our case this is the link, so I will copy this link of our web application and provide it here. Alright, and now to test it I will go to my conf.js file, and here instead of example spec.js that is already present, I have to provide the name of my file, test file. So that is calculator.js, and I will save this by pressing Ctrl S, and now I can run this. So for that I will go to terminal. So you can see we have a terminal here at the top. I will click here and say new terminal, and at the bottom you will see we have a terminal here. So now here it will open on the same folder, and to run a Protractor test I will say Protractor, and then I have to give the location of the conf.js file. So it is in the conf folder, conf.js. If I press enter, it is launching Chrome browser, goes to the application and closes. It was very fast. So let me add some wait time. I will say browser dot sleep, and this is in milliseconds, so I will say 2000, which is equals to 2 seconds. And I will again run this. I will go to my terminal. I will press the up arrow on the keyboard to get the last command and run it again. So now it goes, opens the browser, goes to the application, waits for 2 seconds, and then it will close. So it looks like this is working fine. Now the next step is I have to enter something in this particular box. I have to enter some integer here. So for that I have to locate this particular element and create a locator. I will do a right click and say inspect, and here in the DOM bottom you can see the section here. This is the section for this element, and we have ng model first type class, so I can use ng model. If you have these angular locators, it is best to use them. So I'm going to use ng model. Now how exactly to use it? Again I will go to the Protractor API, and I will just put here ng model, and here you can see we have got element locator model. I will click here and I have got a example code here. This is how I can select element by dot model and whatever is the value. So I will copy it from here and paste it here, and instead of this value person name, I will select whatever I have here. For ng model, the value is first, so I will have here first. And then I also have to write something in this box, and for that again I will go to Protractor API, and there is something called a send keys. You can see send keys is here, and I can just use this send keys. So we have all these options how to use it. So you can see all these options are here. You can check, and I can just say send keys, and I can give the direct text. So I will say here dot send keys, and let's just say I want to put 2 here in this box. I will again run and check if this is working fine. So it goes to the browser, and yes, it puts 2 here. This is working fine. Now let's just say the next step is I have to put some digit here in the second box. If I do a right click and say inspect, the locators here are, we have ng model property and value is second. I can use this directly. So I will again just copy this statement and paste it again, and here instead of first I will say second, and let me put 3 here, and then I have to click on this button go. If I do a right click and say inspect, this is the section for this button. We have ng click equals to addition, and then id class we have. So we have id, but let's not go with this because we are on Angular. So let's try to use the Angular locators. We have ng click. Now how to use it? If I go to the Protractor API and search for ng click, let me see if you get something here. So here, if you see this example, this is exactly similar to our example, our application, and here there is some custom locator created. You can go by this custom locator. However, I can also use here the CSS. So if I search for CSS, so here let me see, we can get element by CSS. So you can see by CSS we can get like this, all these examples you can see. So basically what I can do is I can use by CSS, and I can use this ng click do addition property here. So for that what I can do is element, and I will say here by dot css, and in brackets I will give quotes here, and then we have to give square brackets, and then I will exactly copy this ng click equals do addition, copy and paste here. Now do not worry if you are not getting exactly on this step. As we go forward with this series on Protractor, you will get more and more information on how do we use all these locators. I will also have a separate section, a separate video on locators, but for now just understand I am selecting a CSS and I am giving this entire property here, and then I have to click here. So I can say dot click, and if you just want to check, dot click is present here. If I say click, you will see we have a click option, click action here. So I'm saying click. Now if I run this and I will check the output, it goes to the browser, goes to the website, and yes, it clicks on the button and then waits for 2 seconds and comes out. Now we have to get the result and verify the result. So if I say here 2 plus 3 and say go, here we get 5, And if I do a right click on this number 5 and say inspect, we get here this section where we just have class equals ng binding and then the result, and we do not have anything else here. Also, if you see here, if I just go again and give some value and click on go, just see this area, this section, what happens here when I click on go. So I'm clicking on go now, and you can see it is processing, and then finally it gives the value. So this is dynamic, so I have to create a locator for this. Now in this case, in Protractor or for AngularJS application in Protractor, what we do is we can use something called as CSS containing text. And if you go to Protractor API and search for CSS containing text, you can see it is here, and this is how we can use it. So we say element by dot CSS containing text, and then whatever we have, we say dot and its value. So for example, here I can say CSS containing text dot ng binding and 5. So I will say here element by dot CSS containing text, and in brackets, in quotes, I will say dot and then this thing ng binding I will copy and paste here, and then comma, and again in quotes I will give the value 5. Alright, I will save and try to run this again just to check if this is working fine. And yes, it looks like it's working fine. You can see here it says 1 spec and 0 failures. That means it is pass. Also you can see a green dot here. That means it is pass. So now we actually have to get the value and then compare it. So let me store it into a variable. I will say let result equals. So I'm just storing it into result. You can also use where for variable, which was the old way in JavaScript, but the latest way is let. Both will work, but let us use let here. Let result equals to this. So whatever we get here will be stored into this variable result. And now to verify the output, we have to use some verification statements. Now if you go to this Jasmine cheat sheet, you can see the expectations section here. We can use all this expect dot to be, expect dot not, expect to equal. So this will work in our case, expect to equal, and this comes from Jasmine framework. So I will say expect result. Now we have to also get the text out of this element. So I will say dot get text and dot to equal the value 5. I will give a semicolon. It's a good practice to give semicolon at the end. It will still work if you do not give it, but you can just follow this practice. And I will save, and let me now run this again. So let us see, and yes, this is working fine. You can see everything is fine, and we have got this green dot here and 1 spec and 0 failures. So this is now working fine. So this is how you can create a test case in Protractor. Now some tips: if you are on VS Code, there are some extensions. So if I go here to extensions and search for Protractor, here you can see some extensions, Protractor snippets, run Protractor, all these things. So if I go to Protractor snippets, you can see here this will be very useful. If you get this, you can actually create some snippets directly. Or let me just go with we have test generator, we have run Protractor. Uh, this is also fine, and Protractor snippets is again very good. So if I show you here, you can see this is how you can use. For example, if you want to put element by dot model, we can just put a shortcut and it will expand it. So it is EB mod and it will give the entire thing. So let's say if I install this, if I click on install, and now if I go to my test case, so here whenever I have to add, I will say element EBMOD, and you can see if I press tab, it is completing element by dot model. And there are all these shortcuts that you can check. So if you go to VS Code Protractor snippet extension and go to the documentation, here it is. So you can see all this, and you can see the shortkeys. So if I say bg and press tab, it you will get browser.get. If I say bp and tab, it will give you browser.pause. It will auto complete all this, and you can see all these will be very handy. So you can also get this and you can use this, and this is how you can create your very first test case in Protractor. In the coming sessions, we will look more deeper into elements, locators, object repositories, and the entire framework on Protractor. I hope this was very useful for you. Thank you so much for watching.